Orbison, born on April 23, 1936, in Vernon, Texas, emerged from a life marked by hardship, emotional complexity, and artistic brilliance. Raised in a working-class family during the final years of the Great Depression, Orbison gravitated toward music at an early age. He received his first guitar at 6 and was performing on local radio by the time he was 8, finding a deep emotional refuge in music. Encouraged by his parents, Roy developed a unique blend of musical influences, ranging from Hank Williams and Bing Crosby to Southern gospel, that helped shape his distinctive style. After relocating to Wink, Texas, he formed his first band, the Wink Westerners, during high school, which set the stage for a remarkable career. Orbison's initial professional breakthrough came in the late 1950s when he signed with Sun Records in Memphis, home to Elvis Presley and Johnny Cash. While his rockabilly singles had limited impact, his move to Monument Records in the early 1960s marked a pivotal transformation. Under producer Fred Foster's guidance, Orbison forged a unique sound that wove rock, country, classical, and pop into a haunting emotional tapestry. His breakthrough hit, Only the Lonely, in 1960 catapulted him into fame, followed by a string of heartbreaking ballads like Crying, Running Scared, In Dreams, and It's Over. His music, drenched in sorrow and raw vulnerability, stood in stark contrast to the carefree themes dominating rock at the time, resonating deeply with global audiences. Dressed in black and often hidden behind dark sunglasses, Orbison exuded mystery and melancholia, earning him nicknames like the Caruso of rock and the Big O. Despite a decline in popularity during the 1970s, his career found renewed vigor in the 1980s as younger artists praised his influence. In 1987, Orbison was inducted into both the Rock and Roll and Songwriters Halls of Fame, with luminaries like Bruce Springsteen and Bob Dylan acknowledging his immense talent. That same era saw him return to the spotlight with the Grammy-winning duet That Lovin' You Feelin' Again, recorded with country rock singer Emmylou Harris. The success reaffirmed his crossover appeal and emotional depth. Orbison's resurgence reached a peak when he became a founding member of the Traveling Wilburys, alongside George Harrison, Bob Dylan, Tom Petty, and Jeff Lynne. Formed spontaneously, the supergroup released the acclaimed Traveling Wilburys Volume 1 in 1988, where Orbison, under the pseudonym Lefty Wilbury, played a pivotal role with his harmonies and vocals, particularly on Handle with Care. His contributions that year culminated in another Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, where Springsteen again lauded his voice of heartbreak. These honors recognized not just his musical innovation, but the emotional honesty that defined his work. Yet behind the acclaim was a man haunted by relentless personal tragedy. In 1957, Roy married his young love Claudette Frady, with whom he had 3 sons, Roy Dwayne, Anthony King, and Wesley. Their relationship was turbulent but passionate, inspiring several of Orbison's songs. However, tragedy struck in June 1966 when Claudette was killed in a motorcycle accident shortly after the couple had reconciled. The grief devastated Orbison, and his sorrow deepened in 1968 when his 2 eldest sons perished in a house fire while he was on tour in England. His youngest son survived only because he was staying with his grandparents. These traumatic losses shattered Orbison, and he withdrew from public life for a time. Amidst this sorrow, a new chapter began when he met German-born music executive Barbara Jacobs, who became his second wife in 1969. Their relationship proved to be a source of strength and healing. Together, they had 2 sons, Roy Kelton Jr. and Alexander, and Barbara played a crucial role in managing his career and legacy. In his final years, Orbison's public life experienced a renaissance. His 1989 album Mystery Girl and involvement with the Traveling Wilburys brought him back into the limelight, but behind the scenes, his health and emotional well-being were fragile. In 2014, a deluxe edition of Mystery Girl commemorated its 25th anniversary and included a newly completed demo titled The Way Is Love, finished by his sons Wesley, Roy Jr., and Alex using his original vocals. Produced with the help of John Carter Cash and Jeff Lynne, the track served as a poignant tribute, linking father and sons through music. Yet, for decades, fans and biographers puzzled over the recurring themes of sorrow and isolation in his work, as well as the enigma behind his stoic public image. Recently unearthed materials, private letters, journals, and early medical records have revealed darker truths about Orbison's life. Sources close to him claim that Orbison suffered severe psychological trauma dating back to childhood, trauma that was never adequately treated but instead sublimated into his music. Most strikingly, it has emerged that Orbison underwent a series of experimental sinus surgeries as a teenager to address a chronic breathing disorder. Some speculate that these procedures inadvertently altered the structure of his vocal cords, giving him the legendary 3-octave range, but also resulting in chronic migraines and physical pain that followed him throughout his life. While these revelations don't diminish his artistry, they shed new light on the toll it took. His personal journals describe immense despair, dependency on prescription drugs, and recurring thoughts of leaving the music industry, or even ending his life. Contrary to the public image of triumphant comeback in the late 80s, Orbison was suffering from untreated heart conditions and emotional burnout. Despite the smiles, performances, and accolades, those closest to him now say he was emotionally and physically depleted. His sudden death from a heart attack at 52, though shocking to fans, was seen by insiders as a long-anticipated tragedy. The enduring mystery of Roy Orbison's persona, his distant stare, somber lyrics, and ethereal voice, has finally been clarified, though not in the comforting way many had hoped. The truth reveals a man who gave everything to his craft, even as it quietly consumed him. His haunting ballads weren't merely artistic expressions. They were veiled cries for help, only fully understood long after his passing. His life was a complex mosaic of genius and grief, resilience and rupture. And while the veil over the Roy Orbison mystery may now be lifted, what lies beneath is a story far more human, raw, and heartbreaking than the myth. While Roy Orbison's music elevated him to near-mythic status, his private world remained largely veiled until long after his death to the public. He was a man with a mournful voice who seemed to feel every word he sang, but to those closest to him, Orbison was a man profoundly scarred by early trauma, complex family dynamics, and the immense emotional pressure of balancing personal loss with public adoration. His art was not just self-expression, it was survival. Though his stoic stage presence and black-clad appearance became iconic, they were born less out of design than necessity. According to Orbison's own writings, his signature dark glasses were initially adopted due to an eye condition, but they quickly became a shield from the outside world. As his fame grew, so did his discomfort in public, and the glasses became both a symbol and a form of armor. Offstage, he was known to be gentle, introspective, and deeply private. While fans perceived mystique, his inner circle understood it as protective isolation. The psychological toll of his early years was far-reaching. Sources from family and former collaborators later revealed that Orbison had experienced emotional neglect and intermittent bouts of bullying during childhood, especially due to his appearance and introverted nature. These early wounds likely shaped both his sensitivity and his reluctance to form deep bonds outside his family. His voice became not only a gift but a vessel for his pain, transforming experiences he could not articulate into sonic narratives of longing and heartbreak. Even as he matured, success never fully insulated him from insecurity. Despite a career that would eventually span 3 decades and influence generations of artists, Orbison often suffered from crippling self-doubt. His journals describe feelings of inadequacy and imposter syndrome, particularly during periods when his popularity waned. After the initial hits in the early 1960s, a decline in commercial momentum through the 1970s left him questioning his relevance. Record labels passed on his demos, and critics, increasingly focused on newer trends, overlooked his contributions. But Orbison never stopped writing or recording, even when no one was listening. In many ways, music was his constant, the one force he could rely on when the rest of his life felt unstable. The loss of Claudette was not merely the tragic end of a marriage. It was a destruction of the one person he believed would be his anchor. Orbison never fully recovered from her death. Friends recalled that for months afterward, he would sit in silence for hours, staring at photographs of her or listening to songs they had loved together. Claudette, originally a lively song celebrating her beauty and spirit, took on an eerie, funereal quality in his later performances, as if even the music couldn't escape the shadows of her absence. The house fire in 1968 that killed his 2 sons was an emotional blow that nearly broke him. Orbison was in England when the call came. His attempts to process the news were compounded by the guilt of having been away. Despite being committed to his career, though his youngest son, Wesley, survived, the family's home and much of their personal history were destroyed in the fire. For Orbison, this marked the end of an era. He spent several months in relative seclusion, surrounded by grief-stricken relatives and close friends. Those who visited him during that time described a man hollowed by sorrow, barely eating, barely sleeping, but still picking up his guitar late at night to pour his anguish into new compositions that would never be released. Barbara Jacobs entered his life at a moment when he had given up on the idea of healing. Their relationship, while not without its difficulties, was grounded in mutual respect and emotional support. Barbara understood Roy in ways few others could. A business-savvy music executive, she became not only his wife but his manager, protector, and partner in rebuilding his life. Her influence during the late 1970s and early 1980s was crucial to Orbison's reemergence. She advocated for new recordings, arranged appearances, and was instrumental in connecting with artists who revered him, many of whom would later collaborate with him on the Mystery Girl album or the Traveling Wilburys project. One of the most striking things about Orbison's resurgence was how organically it unfolded. Unlike forced comeback attempts that often rely on gimmicks or nostalgia, his revival was rooted in genuine respect. Artists like Bruce Springsteen, Elvis Costello, and K.D. Lang all cited him as a foundational influence. His voice, haunting and uniquely emotive, was now seen not as old-fashioned but timeless. He became a bridge between generations of musicians, someone who brought gravitas and lyrical sincerity to a music industry increasingly dominated by artifice. Despite the public revival, Orbison's health was in steady decline. He had a family history of heart problems, and his own years of emotional turmoil, irregular sleep, and reliance on medication had only worsened the condition. Friends and family urged him to slow down, but Orbison, always driven by music, pushed on. He was especially energized by the Traveling Wilburys project, which he described as one of the happiest musical experiences of his life. The camaraderie among the group, particularly his friendships with George Harrison and Tom Petty, brought moments of levity and belonging he had rarely known in his adult life. Yet behind the scenes, the pressures remained. Orbison often confided to friends that he felt he was living on borrowed time. The fear of another tragedy loomed large in his mind. He recorded Mystery Girl with a quiet sense of urgency, pushing himself through fatigue and chest pains to complete the album. When it was finally released posthumously in 1989, it was lauded as a masterpiece. Tracks like You Got It and She's a Mystery to Me captured the full spectrum of his voice and emotional expression, standing proudly among his earlier classics. The story of Mystery Girl came full circle in 2014, when a deluxe reissue introduced The Way Is Love, a previously unreleased track completed by his sons. For fans, it was a touching postscript, a symbol of continuity and healing. The track, produced with the help of Jeff Lynne and John Carter Cash, became a powerful reminder that Roy's music transcended time, capable of touching new hearts even decades after his death. But even with this late appreciation, the deeper, more unsettling aspects of Orbison's life could not be ignored. In recent years, scholars and biographers have taken a closer look at the implications of his teenage medical treatments, sinus surgeries that may have inadvertently restructured his vocal anatomy. Originally intended to alleviate chronic breathing issues, these surgeries were reportedly experimental and conducted at a time when medical oversight was lax. The results were both miraculous and tragic. On one hand, they gave him his unmistakable vocal range. On the other, they left him in recurring physical pain. Some believe this physical discomfort added to the emotional weight of his performances, the sense that he was constantly singing through some invisible burden. Further complicating the legacy is Orbison's struggle with prescription drug dependency. During the 1970s, as he tried to navigate grief and declining career opportunities, he was prescribed a variety of medications to help him cope with insomnia, depression, and physical ailments. These prescriptions, though medically sanctioned, began to take a toll on his mental clarity and energy. In his journals, he wrote of feeling foggy, distant, and trapped inside his own head. Though he later worked with doctors to reduce his dependency, the damage to his body and psyche was significant and likely contributed to his early death. Despite it all, Orbison never stopped giving. He continued to record, mentor young artists, and appear at charity events. He took pride in his children's musical pursuits and especially cherished a renewed bond with his youngest sons. Barber's commitment to preserving his legacy after his passing further ensured that Roy's contributions would not be forgotten. Under her leadership, the Roy Orbison estate not only managed reissues and licensing deals, but also produced documentaries, tribute concerts, and remastered editions of his most beloved albums. When Barber passed in 2011, their son Alex took up the mantle, continuing the family's efforts to keep his father's music alive for future generations. What makes Roy Orbison's story so compelling is its layered complexity. He wasn't just a performer or a songwriter. He was a man who bore his wounds openly through music, even when he concealed them in life. His songs weren't crafted for trend or fame. They were confessions, elegies, and love letters from a soul that had seen too much loss and yet still longed to connect. His voice, a trembling mix of power and fragility, remains one of the most unique in music history. It is no exaggeration to say that when Orbison sang, it sounded like someone weeping through melody, as if his entire being was channeled into every line. Today, his influence continues across genres. Whether in the aching vocals of Chris Isaak, the storytelling of Bruce Springsteen, or the cinematic pop of Lana Del Rey, traces of Orbison's DNA remain embedded in the emotional language of modern music. His life stands as a powerful testament to resilience of the human spirit, the cost of creative genius, and the profound ability of art to make sense of suffering. In the final analysis, Roy Orbison was not a mystery to be solved, but a soul to be understood. His life defied the neat arcs of traditional celebrity narratives. There was no tidy resolution, no moment where all the pain faded into joy. Instead, there was music, an enduring cry from a man who bore his burdens with grace and gave the world something unforgettable in return. His songs remain not just as artistic milestones, but as emotional landmarks, timeless, honest, and deeply human.